Welcome to the Minnesota Liberty Network podcast, your source for all things freedom, individual rights, and the search for liberty in the land of 10,000 lakes. Recording from the Main Street Studios in District 58 in the beautiful city of Lonsdale. I am producer Matt V, and I bring to you Senator Bill Lieske and Representative Drew Roach. They will bring you news for the legislature and in their district, along with great guests. All right, so let's get to it. All right, guys, we finally made it.
We're here.
Episode 1.
Episode 1.
Should
Good
be
to be
good.
here.
Got a lot of stuff to talk about, don't we?
It's been a bit of a crazy couple weeks.
Little bit, yeah, a little crazy, yeah.
Well, what do you mean by crazy? What happened?
Well, I mean,
What, you been in a hole, Matt? Or what?
Oh, no, I watch TV, believe me.
you do? You watch TV?
Occasionally, yeah.
I don't watch TV anymore. Don't trust all that.
Okay, I won't. I'll be sure not to trust it. I'll just come to you guys for any information that I need.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, if you're trying to get the truth, I wouldn't watch any local news either, because they're just giving the perspective of
One party.
one party.
Well, of course, I just go to your guys' feeds, and I'm happy.
All right. Well, good. Glad to hear that. Well, I suppose we should talk about who we are, huh?
Yeah, please do. Want to go first, Drew?
Go ahead,
say-
Senator.
All right. So I'm Senator Bill Lieske, represent the District of 58, which is Dakota County, Rice County, Goodhue County, and Scott County. Not that that's all that important or exciting to talk about, but the people I represent are important because they're important to me, and that's why I'm there. Who I am, I'm a chiropractor. I own my own clinic. Also happen to be the proud father of two beautiful girls, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I have a wonderful wife at home, and she keeps me sane and level most of the time.
Your 4-year-old's a cutie. She loves to talk to people. She's great.
I think you're talking about my 7-year-old. My 4-year-old is the shy one, but she's full of energy. Both of them are. The 7-year-old is, she's good kid. She loves talking to everybody.
Yes, every time I see her, she's like, "I'm almost taller than you."
Well, I mean, it's not wrong.
You're getting there.
It's not wrong.
Keep
She's
eating,
about a foot shorter.
Keep eating them vegetables.
At
You'll
seven,
get there
at
soon
7
enough.
years old, she's only a foot shorter than you.
I always joke around with when I see kids, and I'm like, "You must be 12." Like, how did you know? I said, "Well, usually when you're 13, you get taller than me. Typically."
13.
Yeah. So.
Well, Drew, talk about yourself. Tell us
Well,
who you are.
I'm Representative Drew Roach. I represent District 58B. It's a smaller portion of the Senate district that Bill covers. We cover Farmington, Randolph, Vermilion, Coates, Northfield, areas of Northfield. Geez, boy.
I'm gonna help Drew out
A
here.
large, about Denison, Stanton,
So,
A lot of rural areas,
Douglas
right?
Township.
I'm gonna help Drew out here. The reason why you didn't hear me listing off all of the names of the
It's a
townships
lot.
Take you forever.
is because, first of all, there's a lot of them. I believe there's 47 precincts in my Senate district,
Yeah.
which is pretty significant. If I had to sit there and list off all 47, and let's say I hit 45, how do you think those two precincts are
Sure.
gonna feel?
Well, you know
So,
what?
Drew, from here on out, every time you introduce yourself, just talk about the counties. I represent the south half of Dakota County. I represent a small portion of Rice County and a small portion of Goodhue County. That's how you would handle
See,
it.
look at this. This polished politician already helping me out. Thanks, Bill.
It's practice, right? It takes
Appreciate
practice. Only because I was in your position at one time. I tried to list all 47 off, and I missed one, and believe me, I heard
Sure.
about it.
Well, I represent them all equally.
So do I, and that's why I just say the counties because it's easier.
The principles apply equally.
What I'm going to do is still represent those people.
For sure. But yeah, no, I'm a small business owner. I've been an owner operator of a business now for it'll be 8 years in April. So, when I was campaigning, I always let people know I sweat by day and campaign by night, right? So, got 3 kids, a wife to be at home. She's
Congratulations, as always.
Yep, she's pretty badass herself, and keeps me going and keeps me in check. Like I said, first time rep, so excited to represent the district and looking forward to getting. Well, I've been at work, but actually doing work.
You've been doing work. The question is if your counterparts are doing their work.
Is it? Yeah. I mean,
It's funny.
ridiculous.
I think this brings us right into that discussion. Actually, this is a perfect segue.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did that on purpose or if it just flowed nicely.
It did. Yeah.
So, anyways, bringing us flowing in nicely, which I like that, Drew. Tell us about that first part of the legislature. How was being sworn in? I bet you it was the best day of your life.
Yeah, we got sworn in like you typically do, on the House floor.
Yeah, were all of you there?
No, there was
Wait, what?
66 not there.
Isn't it in the Constitution that it says that everybody's supposed to attend?
It sure is.
Oh, okay. I just thought I'd check.
Yeah, they interpret the Constitution much differently than.
Well, who's they? Let's talk about who they are.
They would be the Democrats.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask.
The Democrats. I don't know.
Who?
Christy.
Who?
Christy.
Who?
Where's Christy Purcell?
Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to her.
She's
since,
missing.
Let's see. The last time I talked to her was at a forum back in, I think it was August or no, it was October. It was definitely October. There was a forum over at the Legion in Lonsdale, and that was the last time I talked to her.
Sure. Yeah. Never talked to her because she.
You've never met her.
No, she's not. She doesn't show up to work. She's collecting unemployment funds from taxpayer dollars.
Is she employed or
she
unemployed?
doesn't
Because she's
deserve
choosing
the-
not to show up to work.
Yeah.
Oh,
Choosing. But if you ask her
She's doing the will of the people.
her constituents don't want her to show up.
Well, it's funny she says that because I live on 58A side. And technically, although I am a state senator, I'm still her constituent in 58A House District. And I can tell you I want her to show up to work because I've even sent a couple bills over for her to work on.
Yeah. I've gotten plenty of emails of where's Christy? And I said, I don't know. You're going to have to reach out to her LA and figure out where Christy is. She's been missing.
So your perspective of the legislature is that only half of the body shows up to work. See, now that's funny because in the Senate, it's the opposite way. We actually all showed up to work and we figured out how to get things working. And, the Democrats didn't hold their one-seat majority over us because they don't have one. Yeah. And the opposite is true in the House. You guys actually have a one-seat majority.
Well, and you served for 2 years in the minority and you show up to work?
I showed up for work every day. It was a pain. It sucked. A lot of things that I had to say went unnoticed.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the Democrat trifecta of 2022 election was pretty scary.
Yeah, very scary.
But yeah, we showed up. My swearing-in day was pretty straightforward. There was a few things that happened, and honestly, it was actually, what's crazy about it? It's actually one of the most unprecedented things that's ever happened in the Senate in Minnesota, but it was overshadowed by people not showing up to work at the House.
Right?
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. You literally, you can't make it up.
No, it's like, we opened the Senate in a deadlock tie. You know how impossible or improbable that is? It just doesn't happen.
They're perpetual, and can I get the button? Hit the button.
Which button?
You know what the button? They're perpetual babies.
Oh, I have to cue that up. Give me a second.
Oh,
Sorry.
Matt.
Maybe I got the wrong machine today. Give me a second here.
He's like, I'll get it. I'll make the cry.
Give me a sec here. Sorry, guys. I know this one.
Dun, 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 dun. They're perpetual.
They're perpetual. I know.
Oh.
I know the sound
Day
pads
one production.
That's right. That's
We're learning.
It's okay. Maddie V is learning. There we go. Hey, is that Christy? Hang on.
I think so.
That might be.
Should we try it? Should we try it again?
Do it again.
Do it again. Let me see if we can hear her. Yep, that sounds like
sounds
the
about right.
That sounds like the Democrats from the
Okay.
House. That's all
Yep.
I hear.
That's awesome.
You can't make it up.
No.
So yeah, it's been interesting, right? We've been showing up to work. We've been doing the work for the constituents and for the state, and we've had a stalemate because Democrats think that a minority of the legislature can control the majority of the legislature, and
Wait a minute. They can't?
well, apparently they can. Apparently, there's
Since when could they?
well, since the judiciary came through and essentially said that we didn't have quorum.
Hang on.
And now that they have authority to
my-
hijack the entire body.
My interpretation of that whole opinion of the court, mind you.
Opinion, correct.
It is not a ruling. There is no ruling, no law change, no hand down, do this authoritative response. They gave an opinion. Their opinion was that a quorum is 68 people. That's their opinion. And that's okay. The Supreme Court does have an opinion. They have a reason to participate in this discussion because they are the overseers of the Constitution and state statute. So I agree that they can give an opinion on things. That's 100% their prerogative. Now the question becomes whether the House chooses to listen to that opinion or not. That's completely on the House. That's not up to them.
Well, let's just break down the opinion of the court.
Sure.
So the way the court's opinion is if you have a kitchen table at your house that has space for 6 people, and you have a family of 5, your family is 6.
No, that's the max.
That makes
seated family
absolutely no
members. Yeah.
sense.
That's their opinion.
And no, I think a better way to describe it is actually let's go a little bigger. Let's use a family table of 10, and you only have 8 people that are seated at the table. They're saying that a quorum is still 5 or 6, or still 6, because that would be in the majority of 10, right? Because 5 is 50%, not plus 1. So therefore, 6 of those 8 members of your family, although you don't have 10 people, 6 of them have to vote on something in order for that. So that's like a 3/4 vote. That sounds absolutely silly to me.
Yeah.
So, Bill, are they saying that someone from the other, from the other has to be on that quorum?
I guess, Matt, you're going to join my quorum. You're going to have to be part of my 8-person family. Sorry.
Yeah.
In order to get this vote happening. And Drew, you can too. You guys are each going to have a seat at my table, even though you're not elected to my family. You don't have the same last name.
Yeah, and if you watch that, the court case at the Supreme Court, the lawyers in the GOP argued that the judiciary didn't have jurisdiction over the body.
Which, again, like I expressed to you, I think you're right. They don't have jurisdiction telling the body what to do. 100%. They have an opinion, and they're allowed to have a ruling in the world of the opinions. Their opinion is that they believe a quorum is required to have 68. Now, it's just an opinion. It's not them saying, hey, you guys can't pass anything without this. But the problem is that if you guys were to pass something without 68 votes on it right now, they would likely shoot it down constitutionally. They would argue that because of their opinion that law is not effective.
Yeah.
So, and they have the right to do that, unfortunately, no matter how you slice it, right? They can choose to say that law was passed without constitutional authority. Sure, fine. But it doesn't mean that you guys can't organize with less than 60.
Yeah, well, if our argument was that, that they don't have authority and,
sure,
aren't the ruling body of the House,
they're 100% correct.
then we just ignore the ruling and we continue to go about the work that we've been doing because our defense was that they didn't have jurisdiction.
And again,
so we
like
can respect their opinion
and
still disagree and just
Right.
get back to work as usual.
And like I said, what the reality is, I had never heard from your caucus saying that you guys were going to pass laws without 68 votes. I never heard that.
Yeah.
The only thing I heard you guys talking about was organizing, which has nothing to do with the judiciary branch, and creating committees, which is part of the organizing process.
Yeah.
And electing a speaker of the House, a leader of the House.
Yeah.
Which is the speaker position. I think it's funny that we originally in Minnesota, I don't know if you knew this, but it was never originally called the Speaker of the House. But they chose that name because it was representative of what the federal government was doing.
Sure.
So it's kind of funny that we do that. But needless to say, nothing you guys have done, according to that Supreme Court ruling, is actually out of order. The only thing that would be out of order is declaring that you have quorum and passing anything laws legislatively. Because as how you organize, the majority gets to choose how you organize.
Yeah, which
currently 67 to 66, 67 is the majority.
We haven't made an attempt to pass law.
I mean, we've done things in the Senate where only 24 people voted on something, but because only 10 people voted opposed, it still passed.
Yeah.
It was still a rule change or whatever. It doesn't need to have a quorum vote in order for those rules or processes to change. I think there's days we're sitting on the Senate floor, and I still remember my first couple days there, And I'm going, wait, we're just going to voice vote on some of this stuff, which I honestly didn't know how that worked because I was new. I assumed that voice votes occurred because I was told, hey, don't forget to call roll calls once in a while. Which, by the way, now we call roll calls every day.
Yeah.
Because we allow proxy voting, which is a whole other topic we can go down someday. But we're sitting there and there's a motion on the floor to move one bill from one committee to another. Do you know how many people probably voted on that? Like 4.
Yeah, right.
4 say aye and then say
nobody
nay.
says nay, so yeah.
So it's just 4 people made that process happen.
Yep.
So are we going to take the opinion of the court and now decide that every single action in the Senate and the House now has to have a quorum vote? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know how dumb that would be?
Yeah.
You'd have to have 34 people on the Senate floor and you'd have to have 68 people on the House floor for every action occurring.
Yeah, the precedent that they set is...
Well, no, they didn't set a precedent yet.
Well,
'cause we as a body
correct.
still have to decide whether we accept that opinion or not.
Correct. If we accept that, it's a bad precedent to set.
Oh, it's a terrible precedent.
Right.
Because now even like when there's... So the Constitution was written very strangely in a lot of different ways. And one of the things that I've always found intriguing is, and I didn't know this was a rule, and I bet you still are... You just learned it about it because of Martin Luther King Day. But the bodies cannot adjourn for more than 3 days during session. Yep. Something that I never knew about.
Yep.
Honestly, I
learned that the other day.
I think it's a very weird rule, but it makes sense, right? So we need to stay in session while we're in session. It's really what it's saying.
Yeah. Get to work.
And so with that, you guys and we had so our Senate body decided instead of being there on Martin Luther King Day, because we didn't have an agreement with the House, because of course no one knows what's going on with the House. Even the Republicans are like, we think this is right, and I agree that their position is correct, but no one knew what to do with the messaging back and forth. In fact, I don't think the House or the Senate sent a message saying, hey, we have a concurrent resolution saying that we can go 4 days this time. In fact, I know that wasn't ever sent over from the Senate, and from what I understand, it was never sent from the House. So that meant that we had to open and close every 3 days. So we had a skeleton crew, as we like to nickname it, a skeleton crew run the, by the way, great TV show, Star Wars show.
Never heard of it.
We'll talk about it later.
Never heard of
It is actually pretty good.
I actually really
I've been
liked
watching it.
But we had a skeleton crew. We had a skeleton crew going on Friday. So we had two Republicans, 2 Democrats, and the presiding officers there Friday morning. And all we did was open, say we did some motions, close. There was no seriousness of bills or anything being heard on the floor. If any funny business had occurred, then we all get phone calls and we all go to the Capitol. But that's the skeleton crew. And the same thing happened on Monday for you guys on Martin Luther King Day.
Yep.
So it was interesting when Christy Purcell posted about how there was no Republicans there. And I'm thinking Christy, you already know this. You've been there 2 years. This is legally had to happen. Constitutionally had to happen.
Well, and just the fact that she's saying there's no GOP members there when she hasn't shown up yet.
Right.
Or any of her colleagues.
Well, she clearly was there. Or somebody for her was there because they took a picture from
She
the gallery.
screenshotted from...
Well, sure, but we're going to assume that she was there. I'm just going to assume she's there because it looked like she took the picture.
State Patrol should have dragged her in.
Well, I mean, yeah, it would have been interesting. Then you guys could have gotten a quorum if y'all had been there.
For sure.
Could have been fun.
Well, that's the question, right?
Right.
Is a Democrat going to show up?
Well, and I think that's intriguing.
Just need one.
Just need one. And, I find it interesting that all these people in very squishy districts that only won by a couple hundred votes or less, 14, Brad Tapke, maybe.
He didn't win.
I don't think so either. That's a whole other topic. But
Rigged.
Let's talk about Dan Wolgamott. He probably did win. I don't think there's enough corruption.
There she is. I found her.
Hey, we found Christy again. Where's she at?
Are you talking about vodka loving Dan Wolgamott?
Yeah. The friend or the opposite side of the aisle of other people that we know that enjoy their alcohol too much.
Interesting.
But yeah, so I mean,
Booze.
No, I was talking about the MPPOA Legislator of the Year.
Oh, Judy Seberger.
No.
Oh, yeah, Dan. Yeah. Before.
Yeah, he got it the year before he got caught doing those things.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Still in good favor with the MPPOA.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Interesting.
It's super weird, but whatever. The reality of the situation is none of them have shown up, and it would be nice to know when one of them plans to show up, because I can't imagine collecting a paycheck not doing my job.
Well, and that their emails are just they're inundated with
You know, it's
upset constituents telling them to get their ass to work.
it's funny because, like Christie, for example, I know there's this roundabout that is really necessary, or that Northfield thinks is necessary. I'm willing to introduce the bill for it. Over on 19 and Armstrong, the one over by Post, kind of.
Okay.
It's not quite to Post. It's closer to the trucking company, but there's that weird road that comes down off the hill by St. Olaf.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And there's this intersection that's kind of it's a cluster there.
Yeah, it is.
It's on that curve right there, right?
Yep.
Yep. It's right on the curve. So the city of Northfield had asked for a roundabout there, and I introduced legislation last year. And now, of course, I've been told that Angie Craig, of all people, managed to get some federal funding right at the end of last session.
She always does that.
Well, whatever. At least it's for the city that
Is that why she's in favor with the MPPOA? Is some of the money she brought?
Yeah, from what I told, she got endorsed by them because she got body cams for Dakota County.
Yeah, at the, like very last minute too.
But whatever. More props to her. She, whatever. She does a decent campaign. She knows what she's doing.
Sure.
I have to give her credit sometimes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. Sure. I mean,
I
if there was,
I don't like what she's
I believe
doing.
if there was a Republican in the seat, they do the same.
Right, and I don't
Right.
necessarily agree with all the ways she votes, but at least some of the things she does, okay, fine.
Sure.
So she got a bunch of federal funding for this roundabout, and for a lot of remodeling on 19, which is really cool. I appreciate it. The city, the county needs it, the state needs it for funding for some of these roads, because our roads are not in the greatest shape. You drove over here on 19. I'm sure you're enjoying the bumps and the bruises on the way here.
That hasn't been updated in years.
It's
and
been a long
years.
time.
Years.
It's a really big, beautiful roundabout that they've got off 35.
Yeah, right off 35, but they want to get one over in Northfield.
That's probably one of the bigger ones I've
So
ever.
it's funny. So I get back to the story of why I'm talking about this roundabout bill. So I pulled the bill. I knew that they wanted it. I got jackets for it, and got the jackets. So I get the house jackets. And I wasn't going to send it to you because it's not in your district. It doesn't make any sense for you to carry the bill. It makes more sense for Christy to carry the bill. And it's a good bipartisan bill. There's no reason this shouldn't be bipartisan. And I had my LA, my assistant, run it over, and she said, it's a ghost town. Not only are they not there, but their LAs aren't even in there.
I was told that there's like blankets like on top of some of the.
I don't know. I haven't been there. Myself.
Like they're building forts there.
I guess. I don't know. But there was no one in the office. Zero. Not even their assistants are there working.
Hey, Drew, that's called a safe space.
Blanket forts are now our safe space.
Oh, that's great.
So I guess, Drew, that's concerning to me. Like, even their aides that are also getting paid, by the way,
Interesting.
aren't in the office.
Wow.
I thought that was against the rules. I don't know. You're gonna have to talk to your chief clerk. You're gonna have to talk to your people that are your nonpartisan staff and ask, when did we approve assistant staff not to show up?
Yeah. They must be in district, just doing the work in district.
I don't know what in district means. I mean,
Going to
some of these events aren't even in district. So I'm
hanging out
confused.
at coffee shops and.
I mean, at least that's in district. But I mean, some of these other events, she's on Zoom calls. Is she actually doing anything?
Yeah. Interesting.
It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if they showed up. We can get to work and do the work for the taxpayers of Minnesota. But that is yet to happen, and they're hell bent on this power sharing agreement that they do not have because they've got 66 members. And why do they have 66 members? Because they had one of their should have been 67th member who filed an affidavit of candidacy and suggested that he lived in a city in which he did not live.
Right. I mean,
And so they lied. They tried to.
they tried to cover it up.
They try to cover it up. Which is why what they're doing now is not even talking about that, and that this is all a diversion to get away from the truth that they put up a candidate who did not live in a district in where he said he lived. Right? Total lie.
100%.
This guy belongs in jail. Okay, he campaigned in Roseville, suggesting he lived in Roseville. He got, I think it was over 15,000 votes. I don't know how much. I haven't looked into his campaign financing, but how much money he got from donors
how much money did he steal from donors? That's my
Right.
question. Because
So-
he lied. He lied, and I would call that fraud.
It's 100% fraud. More fraud. Jeez,
Imagine
fraud
that,
from
fraud.
the DFL.
Fraud. Right.
Yeah,
Right. We're
you
close.
know-
We're nearing $1 billion in fraud. Now, how shocked are we that election fraud and campaign fraud is existing?
Yeah, the feeding our futures fraud.
$250 million.
The autism fraud, the
I don't
daycare
know how much that was.
fraud.
Daycare, we're still trying to figure out how much that is. It's crazy.
Fraud
I think
that-
190 million they're talking about for daycare. That's
Yeah,
insane.
fraud that we still don't know about.
Right. I mean, we're talking massive fraud, and then we have people talking about how a little fraud is okay.
A little fraud is okay. I wonder if,
I think that's what Harpstead said.
And I think-
Commissioner Harpstead said that on camera.
Yeah, and
That
Republicans-
a little fraud's okay.
Yeah, and Republicans, we created, because we have the majority right now, we had a plan to put together a committee that looked into fraud.
You didn't
that was
have a plan. You are the plan. We just got to not
But we-
cancel it due to this stupid ruling.
correct, and that was
opinion, sorry.
that committee was due to meet Monday.
Well, and you know what? I
tomorrow.
think you should still meet. I don't understand why they're not.
Who's to say they're not? But
Well,
my point
I mean,
is,
that's a good question. It
is-
says online that they canceled their meeting, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to meet.
the fact matter is I think it's interesting that we have put together a body to
Yep.
investigate, and there are other bodies. The OLA does,
The OLA does great work.
They do.
I will not
They
attack
do.
them at all.
I will not
need
at
to
all.
give them a lot of props for
They
what
actually have a very good report, and anybody.
And they have one of the hardest jobs, right? So
for
they have
sure.
to go in and figure out if people are lying to them, and then on top of that, they have to deal with the fact that these people are lying to them.
If constituents want to know of any of the fraud, they can literally go on the OLA website and look at all the reports.
All the current reports, yep.
And the Feeding Our Futures report is literally a book.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't recommend reading it. It's quite boring.
Well, but
I've
it's-
read
but
part
it's-
of it.
but
It's important.
But it's important, and it's interesting, and it's fascinating that these reports are out there that shows fraud, and the
then we
public
continue to ignore it.
The public, and they know about it, but they've never seen the report.
Right. I
Right?
mean, yeah. The cool thing about being a legislator is you get those reports sent to you every week.
Yeah.
Every time an OLA report comes out, guess what? It's right on your desk. You get
know what?
notified. You get to find out.
I'm gonna start sending that out in my newsletter.
There you go. You should send out your OLA reports.
OLA reports, and they can
You
look
better
into
take
that.
notes. I haven't done that yet. I haven't done that.
There you go.
But
Note to self.
Hey, Bill, will they tell us who killed JFK?
That's a good question. I think they should. According to this, I'm just hoping it's not all blacked out, redacted information still.
I mean, will the OLA take care of that?
Oh
for
no,
us?
they won't.
Oh.
That's a
This
federal
is
government.
this is
I'm
a
kidding.
state. This is a state issue. But yeah, I mean it's.
It's pretty crazy. I can't wait to get really deep into these subjects because there's a lot of time that we have to spend on this. But I think this whole purpose of this episode is just to kind of talk about who we are and give us a perspective of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, let's roll right on over to that third title on our bottom of our screen there. We had our introductions. We know who we are. We've kind of talked about life at the Capitol. It's a bit of a hectic, chaos mess. Let's talk about the news section. It's my favorite section.
Sure.
We'll call it the liberal tears section.
Liberal tiers section. Here we go. Of course, it's not queuing up fast enough for you guys again. Hopefully, next episode we'll have it fixed.
I even segued into this
I know.
section for a while, Matt. Come on. There we go. We're on to the liberal tiers. Let's do it. So, Matt, let's pull up that shot of the post that I shared.
Sure. Why don't you guys keep talking? I'll get her queued up for you.
Perfect. So
Trying to think which one this is.
this is going to be that post that I made about how 58A is still being represented at the Capitol. It's pretty sad because we are missing half of our representation.
Yeah.
But we do have some representation. And if we take a look here on our screen, you should be able to see the post here. It talks about what I said. I said, "Don't worry, guys. Just because they weren't represented. Hang on. Let me pull it up so I can read this properly. Can't see it on my screen.
It is a little bit small on there.
Yep. So
Can
it's
you
okay.
make it full screen there, Matt, or what? Go ahead and do that.
All right. So I posted.
I think I can. Let me switch over here.
There we go. Perfect.
How about that? Does
That
help
looks
a little
good.
bit.
That helps a little. So I posted, "Don't worry, 58A. I was there working. She feels silenced because she chose not to show up today. I've been in the minority the last 2 years and still went to work every day because even though my vote often didn't count," which is what she's complaining about, "I still did the work and managed to author a bunch of legislation that passed. So I managed to work effectively and get bills passed. That's hence why I got to be one of the most bipartisan senators in the state of Minnesota."
And when you say she, were you referring to Christy?
Let's
Purcell?
talk about it. Christy Purcell herself. It's pretty sad. She talks about you, Drew. She complained about you the other day.
Yeah, because I'm just speaking truth.
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
you
I've been
were.
speaking truth about her, and I've been speaking truth about Brad Tapke. I've actually gotten a lot of talking about me from the Minnesota DFL party,
Right.
Brad Tapke,
must
Christy
be doing something
Purcell. I'm doing something right.
Right, exactly. So let's read Christie's post from the day that I was talking about. She said, "Today, Republicans took illegitimate action on the House floor." She's talking about January 14th when you guys took over, because that's your job, right?
Yeah.
Your job, you showed up like you're supposed to. Took action on the House floor that effectively silenced the voices of half of Minnesota. I promise you, half of Minnesota is not silenced.
Yeah.
Half of Minnesota is still either A, represented by a state senator,
Yeah.
or B,
Valid.
they actually have House reps who showed up. So, including our district. No, our district was being represented by myself. I promise you I was there working. Minnesota House Republicans have ignored the law, the Constitution, and the ruling of the Secretary of State Simon. When did Secretary of State Simon get a ruling ability?
Yeah.
Last I checked, the only branch that gets to make rulings is the judiciary branch.
Well, hold on. Let's back up.
No,
again.
ruling.
Sure.
Right? So
'Cause in-
the words are, semantics are important here. So the only branch that should be making any sort of rulings is not the executive branch. It's not the legislative branch. Although when we have hearings, we could have Senate hearings. We could have ethics committee hearings. Those types of things could have rulings, which Senator Mitchell will get to you at some point. Probably not today.
Yeah.
But with that being said, Secretary of State Simon has no ruling. There's no ruling from
Sure.
him, right? And you don't rule from the presiding officer's chair. That's not how that works. You make a decision.
Sure.
You agree or disagree, but you don't make a ruling.
Well, that first day, wasn't he asked to leave?
He chose to leave.
There you
So
go.
anyway, so he made a ruling that could turn a 2-week advantage, which mind you now is going to be a much longer than 2-week advantage. March 5th, I think, is the current outline for possible special election.
It's
we don't
like-
actually know. but
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
that
March 5th or March 11th.
something like that. So it's going to be a long time, a lot more than 2 weeks. So 2-week power, turn it into an illegitimate 2-year power grab. This is a constitutional crisis. No, the Constitution is pretty clear. We talked about that earlier. That the GOP is caused by bowing down to their extreme mega base. Wait a second here. Our base is asking us to represent them. That is not bowing down. We are doing what we were told to do, which is represent them. Who are calling on them to throw out duly elected DFL representative. Was he duly elected? I still have questions. 14 votes difference. He won by allegedly
20 missing ballots.
21 missing ballots.
20
in
you're
his
right.
district, but
Thrown
21.
away in the
Yep.
trash.
Yep, thrown away in the trash, and they know that it went to the recycling center.
Yep.
So they don't know what they said. They bring in 6 people that claim to have been the ones that were missing, which we're not supposed to be tracking that because we're supposed to have free and fair elections, as Christie says.
Yep.
So we're not supposed to link names to ballots,
Which they couldn't.
which
So
they
like,
can't. Right?
This is just it's
It's a ploy.
It's a astroturf argument. It's a gaslighting argument
Right.
that they
So
try to make to try to convince
just-
people that
it's
of-
okay.
of 6 of these ballots are people that are here.
Then
speaking
statistically,
today.
we couldn't possibly have 14 votes overturned. But
Yeah.
that's not even true. Anyways, back to that. And then if we go by what some other reps and people, former reps, have found, there's 96 votes that aren't even linked to a person.
Yeah.
We don't even know who these votes came from.
And 30 ballots that were 30 votes that
30
were
votes that
apparently
maybe were double.
that were double. There's both an absentee ballot counted
And
and
a in-person ballot.
and a
or
precinct
2
vote.
absentee. There was 3 ballots that were 2 absentee
Right.
ballots counted for one person.
Yep.
So
21 missing ballots is 21 missing ballots. Where do we draw the line?
Right. And it doesn't matter because, again, we're not supposed to be able to link these ballots to people. That's the whole purpose of what the Democrat Party had wanted.
Yeah.
We over here are asking for provisional ballots to prove that you exist.
Yep.
And they're over here saying, no, we don't want to prove who they are. And so if we're going to go by their rules, which is what's currently in place, how can we tell those 6 people that testified on the stage, which they weren't lying. Like I'll be very clear that those constituents were not lying. They probably did vote for Brad Tapke. But we don't know that their votes were the ones that got shredded. We don't know that.
Nope.
So goes on to say, further proceedings at the Capitol, including committees, are out of order. Actually, they're not, because it takes a smaller number of people to organize. You can actually organize without a quorum. Again, we've talked about what we think is the quorum and not the quorum. We've had an interesting discussion about that already today. I will not legitimize this unprecedented power grab until Republicans follow the state constitution. I will continue working as your representative for our community outside Capitol grounds to ensure our district and Minnesotans across the state receive continued and fair representation. It is fair representation. We have fair representation in the state Senate.
Well, and to give context to that, she only is saying that she'll represent outside the Capitol because she knows if she comes on the Capitol, she's going to be forced to come onto the floor and be part of the quorum.
Well, and the other thing that's
So
interesting.
this is a tactic, and again, gaslighting by one representative who was just trying to manipulate her constituents by suggesting that she's going to represent them outside the Capitol.
Right, 100%. And how can you represent someone in the state legislature without being at the Capitol, Drew?
Aside from having conversations, which we do every single day, you can't, because the only way you represent them is by, being on the House floor, being in committee, and making decisions for your constituents.
I was going to say, can you send a bill to the floor from outside the Capitol?
I don't believe the hopper is outside the Capitol.
No, I'm pretty sure the hopper is on Capitol grounds.
And for those of you that don't know what the hopper is literally a basket that you take your jacket, or what we call a jacket, you get 2 copies,
Yep.
and you put it into a file, and it gets processed with the clerk's office, and it becomes a bill.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you only can do that from the House floor. That's the only place you can do it.
Right. And what's interesting? The thing that we could get into here is the proxy voting stuff, because technically speaking, on the Senate floor, to get to 34, we don't have to have 34 members on the floor. We just have to have 34 votes on the floor, which technically we would have 34 votes on the floor as long as one member of our party was there, because they can report proxy votes.
Sure.
So if one of them shows up, all 133 members are on the floor because they could report proxy voting.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
So I find it interesting, and it's an interesting perspective, because how do we decide the quorum? Well, the quorum of the Senate, then technically, if we're going off of the opinion of the courts, is 34. Well, we had days where there weren't 34 Democrats on the floor, but we were told that no matter whether we showed up or not, they had 34 votes. See how that gets interesting?
Yeah.
So they could have one person show up and they have 34. That's quorum. We've met quorum because we have one person who can report 33 other proxy votes. See, that's where proxy voting is disgusting.
Yep.
I don't get it. But
Yep.
the problem I have is Christy Purcell is claiming that there is no representation, that their voices have been silenced. No, Christy, by you choosing not to show up, you chose not to show up. That's not them being silenced. That's you silencing your voters.
Yeah.
You have chosen to silence my vote, and you've chosen to silence all of us in House District 58A.
Yeah, the door's not locked. You have access to the House floor. You choose, as you stated, to not show up and do the will of the people. Right?
Yeah, that's what you were elected to do. You literally campaigned and told everybody you were going to be their voice at the Capitol, and here we are. You're refusing to be their voice at the Capitol. I'm tired of hearing the gaslighting. I'm tired of hearing, well, if we show up, the Republicans are going to be mean to us. Well, yeah, you were mean to the Republicans for the last 2 years. You refused to listen to any of our amendments. It was great. I remember my first day on the floor on our first bill. I was there for 16 and a half hours. We offered, I think it was 180-something amendments. Guess how many amendments passed? Just take a stab at it. It's really easy.
0.
There's it is. He's got it. 180 amendments. Possible guidelines to what I would consider the worst legislation in the state of Minnesota's history. And here we are telling others that we need to listen to the voices of the minority.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second here. What?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is Democrats want their voice to be heard, but the reality is when they have power, they will not let the voice of Republicans be heard at all.
Right. Well, we get to talk. We get to talk.
Well,
it's really fun. We get
your
to
voice
talk
doesn't
on,
matter.
We get to talk on the Senate floor, but we get to do nothing.
Like you stated, you brought all these amendments, and I'm sure some of them were.
They were very boring and not
some of them
changing the law.
And some of them were probably good amendments. Others maybe not so much.
There were some really good ones.
Maybe reason for them not to accept some of those amendments, but other ones that were probably very reasonable amendments that they could have easily agreed on and come to a compromise on, and they just refused to.
Well, let's talk about
the reality is
Right.
they don't want to work with the other side.
No.
They just want to create the illusion that they want to work with the other side. And Minnesota voters, don't forget, and if you question it, pull up both the Senate and the House from the last day of session in 2024 and see how Democrats ran roughshod both in the Senate and the House, and how they refused to listen to Republicans. Matter of fact, they couldn't even hear their own members from the floor pushing forth the bills that they were pushing for, because there was so much noise and ruckus and refusing to accept any voice from the Republicans that they just ran roughshod, boom, 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 took as you stated, a roll call vote, which they couldn't hear the roll call vote.
We couldn't even hear the roll call because there were so many people absent. She was calling in all these votes, and I sat there and I went, who's voting on what? And here's the worst part. Let me get to that exact thing, just to talk about that, just for a second. We'll bring up another video of Christie's wonderful concepts of how this should work here. But one of our senators, Senator Westrom, is blind.
Yeah.
He cannot see. When we were making all the ruckus, because of course they were incorrectly not following the rules, Mason's rules, they were incorrectly following the rules of the Senate, they were incorrectly following the rules of the Constitution where we talk about debate, they were not following any of the rules or the laws at the time. They came in, they took away the floor from Senator Howe. Senator Howe was on the floor. He had the microphone. He was the one talking. Senator Bobby Joe Champion, who's the president of the Senate at the time, and he's currently one of the co-presiding officers of the Senate at the moment, decided that he was going to interrupt Senator Howe, remove it, and call on another senator during floor debate, which is completely against the rules, 100%. And so we stood up and we started yelling and asking for following the rules. That's all we were asking for. The fact that people are making it sound like we were the evil ones and that the Democrats were the victims is ridiculous. You know who the victim was? Tory Westrom, Senator Westrom, because he had no idea what was going on. The only way we knew what was happening is because of what was blipping on the screens in the Senate floor. That's the only reason we knew what rules were passing. Just insanity to me. And so, if we're going to talk about silencing the voters, that's silencing the voters.
Totally agree. 100%.
So let's hear Christie's little video. She's got her own little podcast. She's doing this.
Let me get her queued up for you here.
Yeah, that's just fine. I just try to segue in here for you.
Don't show the name if you can. No reason to promote it, but we want you to hear.
We want you to hear their thinking, their line of thought. This is the liberals at the Capitol. I think these called what do they call it?
I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm listen here.
Let's just say they're liberals at the Capitol.
Sure, liberals. I would say extremist, right?
Well, I would agree, but let's let the public decide. We don't have to tell people how.
I'll get into the my reasoning why.
Let you explain why you think they're extremists.
Sure,
but let's watch the video.
Conference. That's why I have a tie on. I love you all, but I did not put on a tie for you guys. And the reporter asked me, what do you want to say to your constituents about why you're not representing them in St. Paul right now? And I said, I am representing the people of my district by not showing up to that illegitimate grab for power. I am representing the people of 25B, the majority of which voted for me to represent them as much when I vote no on a bill or on an amendment as when I vote yes on a bill and on an amendment. When I keep things from happening that I think will hurt my constituents, and when I actively take place in making things happen to help my constituents. That's all part of the job. And right now, my job is to protect the will of the people of Minnesota and the people of my district for the next 2 years, as long as I'm in this elected position. And so that's what I'm doing. It's not that we aren't showing up. This is the work right now, representing the people of our state and making sure that their voice, as expressed in a free and fair election, is protected no matter what. And that includes, by the way, again, to go back to what Brian mentioned with our power sharing agreements, we're not advocating for DFL majority rule. In fact, we said, sure, for these 3 weeks, we're down one, you act as a majority until we know what the voters of Roseville want from this situation. And they said no, very clearly. Don't let the people decide, we decide. And that is tyrannical. That is anti-democratic. That's anti-Republican, by the way. I don't mean the party. I mean the principle of republicanism. And that it's an affront on this. Our Constitution is the very basis of all of our law that they are running roughshod, including the constitutional office. Secretary of State Steve Simon.
That's it.
So, as we can see, that's their idea. That's what they think about this. They think they're not in the problem, but this is them trying to take tyrannical control.
100%.
You want to talk about communism? When you realize that you don't have the power, you look for any way to grab the power.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they're doing. They're
Yep.
they're attempting to use their minority, whilst it does have issues with quorum. I will agree that there may be an issue with quorum for passing a law. I don't know whether it's true or not. Again, we'll figure that out. According to the Supreme Court, it is a problem from their opinion. Now, of course, the question again goes back to the dinner table question, and I think I like that perspective. I like what you had to say about dinner table, because if you only have 8 members of your family, just because you have 10 table seats doesn't mean that you have to take 6 to get a majority. That doesn't make any sense. 5 would be the majority of 8, last I checked. Just like 67 is the majority of 133.
Yep.
It's like, so should I sit down on one of the seats then, and then that would help? Or, yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And again, they're trying to leverage the fact that, the reason why they're not there is they're trying to negotiate a power sharing agreement because they're coming from the perspective that, well, we're going to win seat 40B, right? And so because we have a 67-66 majority, there should be no power sharing agreement because they have not won that seat yet. Now, is it a high likelihood that they will? Maybe.
Right.
It's very possible.
Well, and that's why
it's a very blue district, and I'm not going to sit here and try to give false hope to voters across the state that Republicans for sure can win that seat. We're going to fight like hell. We're going to fight like hell to win that seat, right? We're going to educate the voters of 40B, specifically with the candidate that they put forward,
right?
Who is, I'm not going to get into it yet because we want them to stay the candidate. But we'll get into that in a later date. But they have not won that seat. And so we can't come into it with a negotiation of, oh, well, you're going to win it, so let's just agree to terms now. So no, that's not the way that works.
Is this election effective right now? Or do we have we don't have there's no election in that seat.
No,
it's not even like we're waiting on an election at this point. So the part where they're like, oh, it's going to be a couple
we don't even know when it's going to be.
No.
And it's not going to be a couple weeks. It's going to be months. 7 weeks.
Right.
So the Democrats right now are potentially, folks, could be holding out for another 7 weeks. They want, and they will continue to try to gaslight and astroturf the voters across the state to try to make the Republicans look like the bad guys for not agreeing to a power sharing agreement. So
which
that
you shouldn't have to.
And we shouldn't have to. They should, if they want to come to an agreement, show up at the Capitol.
Well, and so I'm gonna
show up on the House floor. So, let's talk on the House floor like we're expected
adults,
to do.
like you're adults.
Like adults, yeah. That's the word that always wants to get thrown out there.
The children and the adults thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I hear all the time.
It's ridiculous.
It's funny. So I laugh because, of course, Representative Hortman, I refuse to give her the Speaker Designate title because that's not a thing. Because there's not a majority or not a power sharing agreement right now. She's not the Speaker Designate. She doesn't have the votes.
Nope.
So it's as simple as this. Representative Hortman, you told us that you want the House to act like the Senate. The problem is the Senate and the House are two very different bodies. We are tied pending an election. So yeah, we have to share power. No matter whether we had an agreement or not, we would have had 50-50 committees, 50-50 presiding officer, no matter what. That's not the same thing as what you guys are dealing with.
Not even close.
No, it's the opposite. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
You have a majority of a body. And you have a minority of the body.
Yep.
We don't. So it makes sense that we made an agreement. What doesn't make sense is having an agreement before that happens.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting about the Senate's agreement is that who knows? Who knows how long it's going to last? Because it takes 34 votes to remove it. So it could go for forever. If the senators, it could go the entire year. If the senators in the majority, or what would be the majority, choose not to bring that resolution down, then they don't. And we could just stay tied, which in all honesty, it's been an interesting, I will say, I'm going to say it. I know it's weird, but it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
it's interesting to be tied committees, tied floor, have all of the same perks of what a majority party or a minority party doesn't have to deal with. It's nice to get rid of them.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk about this too, because you kind of touched on it earlier as far as there being extremist.
Yeah, get back to that extremist position.
There is extremism within the legislature.
Absolutely, but it's not coming from the Republicans.
But it's not coming from the Republicans. And Matt, I'm going to tee this up for you. If you can, just Google for me, Queer Caucus, Minnesota.
I can do that.
You
Okay.
Google it and we'll pull it up on the screen after he talks.
Google it. And I'll give you some time because let me get into it. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying what you want to do with your body as an adult, by all means, I'm a liberty guy. Go ahead.
Yeah,
If
100%.
if you're a man,
Oh, wait,
and
that's the extreme position, I thought.
yeah, right. If you're a man and you want to be a woman, and you're an adult, by all means, go ahead, do that. I have no problem with
But
that.
you want to take away their rights. According to them, you want to take away their rights.
Where Republicans push back is when that ideology
Gets into the schools and
gets into the schools, and we try to teach kids that
100%.
that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. No, I don't need my third grader coming to class and on the first week of school asking him or her what her pronouns are. That's a problem.
Oh, 100%.
And that's where we push back as parents and as conservatives, because again, we don't care
As an adult,
what you do. What we care is that you try to manipulate, gaslight, and
convince children that they aren't what they are.
100%. And that is the basis of our argument and why we are looked at as
Extremists.
Extremists.
You want to leave the kids alone.
Yeah, no,
It's
we're
strange.
not extreme.
We're evil. We don't want to talk to kids about things that are not for children to think about.
So-
it's funny. Sex ed doesn't happen until 5th grade, but we're trying to teach kids that they can be whatever they want under the age of 5.
Yeah. So
All
with
right,
that,
so
so
we've got
with
the
that
queer
said,
caucus up
yeah.
on
So
the
let me,
screen.
so with that said, with that there, watch again. You as an adult, you want to be a man, or you're a man and want to be a woman. Okay, I think that's odd, and I totally disagree with that theology of your perspective of life. But you have the freedom to do so. But to sit here and to gaslight voters and to say that there is an extremist ideology, a far right, like they'd like to say, of the mega base, the mega Republicans are an extreme facet of Minnesota and the federal government. That is so not true. There's only one extremist side in Minnesota politics, and that is what Matt pulled up right there. The Minnesota Queer Caucus. Now, what this is members of both the House and the Senate from the DFL that have come together as a coalition, that have registered, as you can see, with the Secretary of State's office, and they are known and identify as the Queer Caucus. And now those members, those extremist members, have been able to leverage their ideology within the legislature. Okay, specifically in last session and now too, where they had Democrat trifecta control. They controlled the House, they controlled the Senate, and they controlled the governor. And so this extremist group was able to hijack and leverage the body and say, if you don't add this amendment, if you don't add this language, if you don't put in these proposed bills of the platform of the DFL, which the majority of the public does not align with. You can gaslight all you want.
Killing babies at 9 months pregnancy is something that the public doesn't support?
100%.
Oh, I know it doesn't.
Yeah.
But we voted on the Senate floor against one of those amendments we were talking about, which seriously logical guardrail. You can't have an abortion on the day of labor.
Yeah.
That was an amendment on the Senate floor, and they voted no.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, that's extremist.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that is the extremism of Minnesota politics. And I'm so sick and tired of the media and the DFL trying to explain and gaslight voters into saying that the far right is extreme. That coalition, that caucus is extreme and has hijacked the entire state legislature and has leveraged their ideology against the body to manipulate the will of the people by, again, forcing these amendments, forcing this bill in language to the body and say, well, if you don't put this in, our coalition won't vote and you won't have the votes that you need to pass other bills. That is extreme. Right. So let's be truthful and be honest. Is Christy Purcell and other members of the DFL moderates? Are they willing to call out the extremism in their own party?
No.
Which is known as the Queer Caucus? No. They want to gaslight voters. And where's the mainstream media talking about this?
It reminds me of my blue dog senators. Now, of course, I'm going to hold them. I'm going to give them a chance to prove that they are true. I'm going to give them a chance. I'll take them at their current word.
I call bullshit.
I know. But I like to give them a chance. You know why? Because I have to work with them. Whether I like it or not, I got to work with them. And I'm going to give them some chance to prove to us that they do care and that they do believe that they went too far. So I'm going to give them a chance. And I have a feeling they'll prove us wrong.
Yeah.
But or they'll prove us right. They'll prove you right. I don't have any inkling one way or the other.
You know, they took away from state-funded grants to help out pregnancy centers.
I know, pregnancy centers, yeah.
But yet they want to continue to appropriate money to Planned Parenthood and kill babies.
I get it. They like killing babies.
I've said this before, and I will say this all the time. When I grew up as a kid, I was proud to be a Minnesotan. I still am. But we were known as the land of 10,000 lakes. And now, as of 2025, excuse me.
Yeah, we're in the next year.
Where we just had the March for Life, we're known as the land of 14,000 plus abortions. Your taxpayer dollars are paying for people from outside of the state of Minnesota to come in here, get abortions with your tax money, with your tax dollars. Is that right? No. As a taxpayer, I should have the right to not have my taxpayer dollars go towards something that is immoral that I absolutely unequivocally do not agree with.
They actually said that abortions in the state went up 32% last year.
Oh,
yeah, it went from 12,000 to over 14,000.
And here's my question. The simple question there is the other thing they took out last year, and this is important. Those are 14,000 that we know about.
100%.
Because here's the thing. They took out the requirements of reporting them. So we don't have to, they don't have to be reported. So that all we know about is the 14,000 that were reported. Doesn't mean that we don't know that there's more. I mean, there probably is. There's probably a whole bunch that's
probably double.
That's the scary part. And you know, it's funny because we talk about how, you know, they want to be progressive. They want to see a positive future, a brighter future. You know, I think our most important, our most cherished thing that we have in our lives is the children, the future. That is our future. It's not ourselves. It's not what we come up with. It's not what we're going to do. It's what our kids are going to do. It's what our kids' kids are going to do, right? And if we start killing off generation and generation and generation before they even exist, how are they going to help us solve the world's problems?
Yeah, right.
You know, the person that got aborted could have been the next guy to figure out how to get to Mars safely in a short amount of time. The little girl that we decided to abort could have been the first one to cure cancer.
Yeah.
Not that I don't think there's possibly a cure already out there, but the reality of the situation is these are the people. They want to be progressive, but wouldn't the progressive thought be to continue to protect the future?
You would think, right?
That's my opinion of the definition of progressive.
You would think. Do this for me as well, Matt. Pull up Minnesota Right to Life, because I want to give props where props is due.
Sure.
Well.
Yeah.
And I think there are many organizations across the state, that promote good things. But I want to call out one organization in particular, Minnesota Right to Life. This organization is for sure, without a doubt, unequivocally, one of the best organizations, if not the best in the organizations in the state, and maybe arguably the country, that promotes the right to life. Okay? So for those of you that want to support the right to life, check out that organization.
So the other thing that was interesting, another amendment that was on the floor that I thought it wasn't even extreme. It's defining when life begins. It's a confounding question. It's a very tough question to answer. I mean, it's the chicken or egg question. I mean, no one can answer what came first, the chicken or the egg. No one knows. No one's certain of it. I would argue that the egg had to come first because you can't have a chicken without an egg. But we don't know the answer. So when does human life begin? Well, I would have to say that it begins when the baby becomes a baby, which is conception.
100%.
I mean, as soon as you know you're having a baby, it's a baby. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's inside or outside. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it has a heartbeat or doesn't have a heartbeat. And of course, heartbeats are at about 18 days, which is really not very long. But at the end of the day, that was another amendment that we had on the floor, and it was sad. It got voted down.
Yep.
I was like, all we asked for was a definition. We didn't even ask to change the law. We just asked to add the definition into the bill, saying that life begins at conception.
It most certainly does.
I believe in that. I'm adopted, so it's near and dear to my heart as well. So yes, at conception, I believe.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
So, if that's an extreme view, I guess I'll take my extremism
I love
and enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, you can paint me an extremist all you want.
And the other rights that we have, the things that she talks about, where they're taking away our rights, they're taking away our rights. You know what the first right in the Constitution is about? Oh, my Declaration of Independence. Here we go.
Yeah, you like that? It's
Constitution.
Pretty,
Looks great.
Pretty good looking set.
Yeah,
I get it.
who picked that anyway?
You know what it says on there? The first part about the whole thing. We the people. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it ends with in the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
The very first thing on the list, life.
Yep.
You have a right to life.
Yep. Sure do.
How hard is that? It's interesting how we devolve into one of the toughest subjects, in my opinion. One of the toughest subjects to talk about. I mean, abortion is a tough subject to talk about. Not because I'm not convicted, having conviction on where I stand.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about killing human beings.
Yeah.
And it's so sad that someone who is creating a human being has gotten to the conclusion that they need to end that human being's life. It's sad. It's depressing. And so talking about it as lightly as I can, I always try and get it back to de-emotion, or bring stability to the emotions of it. And it's something that's super concerning to me, is that there's people out there that truly believe that's their only choice.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. Like I said, we devolved a lot down a tangent, but it's something that I think both of us take very seriously, and it's not something that we take lightheartedly. So, I hate the word extremist. I hate getting called an extremist. It's like, dude, if I'm an extremist, man, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess I'll take it. I'll live it and enjoy it.
Label me what you want. I know what I am and who I am and what I stand for, and that I'm the man that I say I'm going to be. So you can label and gaslight and whatever. I could care less. That's what they do. When they can't attack the message, they attack the man.
Right. And
right?
you know what?
It's the way it works.
There's one last thing up there that's going to talk about next episode. This was a great episode. I think we're doing really good. I'm enjoying it. Not sure how long we've been running, but we've been talking good.
It's a little bit over in about an hour.
So let's talk about what we plan on talking about next time.
Sure.
I think we should talk about what bills we have been working on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's going to be our next segue.
Yeah.
It's episode 2. Let's talk about Senate District 58. Let's talk about some of the local stuff that's been causing trouble.
Yeah.
You and I are working on a pretty big topic.
Sure are.
So next episode we're going to talk about data centers. I think that's going to be at the top of the list, and we'll talk about some of our other little bills that we're working on, and they're not so little. They're less pressing to Senate District 58.
Yeah. No, we've got some good bills, and I look forward to when the House convenes and the work actually counts, I guess. That
I think the work counts. I think it's funny that.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right.
No,
I agree. I'm just for lack of.
Right. I think it's funny that the public eye is starting to define this as a sham or a not counting. Well, what do you mean it doesn't count? You guys showed up. You did the work. We're here.
Yep. But I look forward to being able to do that.
To actually work on legislation.
To actually do what we're expected and elected to do. So we're going to sit here and wait. We'll hold out for 7 weeks. If we have to hold out for 7 weeks.
I think they'll be there Monday. I have faith.
Yeah, I don't have as much. I don't have as much faith as you that
want them to
they. I think there might be some.
I think some will show up on Monday, and I think we're going to get to work.
But I think it'll be. I look forward to being able to have that discussion on the next episode of what we have been working on, and if for some reason that they put a reset on that, that we just
it's fine. We'll just deliver it again.
We'll deliver it again. So.
So the cool thing, Drew, I think that we can talk about is your bills getting reset. I don't think they'll get reset.
We're not really sure.
Well, no,
as
so
far
like,
as if the journal's going to be
as far as
erased
I know,
and all that, we don't.
Right, but your bills will still be in the hopper. They'll just get reassigned numbers.
Sure, exactly. Then
So
that's all I'm
they're
saying.
already there.
Yeah,
they're
that's
already
all I'm
there. Because we can introduce bills before the legislative process starts.
Yeah.
And then they just get assigned numbers as they go.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
fine.
So, yeah.
We'll be good. They
Just-
exist.
Just fine.
And they all exist in the Senate. So
Yep.
there's a journal already existing.
Yep. So.
Well, I think you guys did a great job today, and I just wanted to throw out there that go to the Facebook page, go to the Minnesota Liberty Network Facebook page, so you can see what's coming up, and that way you can get dialed in. So,
Thanks
great
for stopping
job
in
today,
on
guys.
the Minnesota Liberty Network.
That's right.